I will take a look and I will either approve or tell you to find another article if it doesn't work. So if you get it in earlier, I'll be happy to approve it earlier. I'm very quick with this usually, and if an article doesn't work, I will try to let you know why, because I want you to be able to turn in an annotated bibliography that has a good chance of doing well. And so when you pick out different articles, I know what's going to work and won't work for you to be able to easily write a paper. So I am going to try to lead you in that direction, not only a topic that's of interest to you, but also will work well for the assignment. Now, let's talk about finding an article. If you go to the Lee University website, scroll down to the bottom, there are the links and you can find library resources. I then go to databases. And here there are lots of databases you can choose. One good one is Academic Search Complete. I use that a lot. There is also a communication one. So if you go to C here, you'll find the communication database. Actually, there's two of them. Now these are fine and you can use them. They have more limited topics than the Academic Search Complete. So although you can be fairly sure that anything you find in here is going to be communication related, it also doesn't include a lot of things that could qualify because it's mostly communication journals. However, there's a lot of communication research that's printed in psychology journals or sociology or anthropology or marketing journals. So I prefer the Academic Search Complete, and there's a number of other ones on here that work. If you've seen one in your English composition class you like better, it's okay to start with it as long as it's pulling up academic sources. Now if you haven't signed in to this lately, you'll get to this page in which you have to sign in with your Portico login. So go ahead and sign in like you would for if you are on campus or if you are in your email, sign into that. And then you are going to select a few things on here. You want to select a full text article and scholarly peer-reviewed journal because all of the research that for this assignment has to come from a scholarly peer-reviewed journal. You may not use something from a random website. You may not use something from a trade magazine. Scholarly peer-reviewed journals have undergone rigorous research before they are published. And so we are only going to be using scholarly peer-reviewed journals. And it's the reason I pre-approve all of your journal articles is I had too many students who didn't process this part of the instruction and turned in complete paper based on something written on a random website by who knows who and got 0 points. So now I pre-approve articles so that you know you have selected appropriate sources for the assignment. All right, so you click, and you want full text because you have to give me the full text in order to have it approved. You can't just give me a link to the article, and you may not just tell me the title of the article. I need to actually look at the article before I approve it. Not every article in a journal is going to be appropriate. On the assignment, I mentioned a couple types of articles that will not work well, and those include literature reviews, opinion pieces, editor comments, and things like that. So there are a number of things that won't work, but I can't tell what your article is unless I can read the entire thing. So full text is what is needed. Now go up here and you put in things that you are interested in. Let's say I am interested in facial expressions and non-verbal communication. So I could do a search And here we have 456 articles that could be appropriate. And if you can see, they have full text for this one. So now this is about monkeys, and our class is about human communication. So this would not be an appropriate one because we want to take a look at only human communication. Here we have one that is about the mirror neuron system, and that's how we often feel emotions that are activated by facial expressions that another person has. So if I see somebody who's crying, then their facial expression will trigger a mirror emotion in me, emotional response. So that's kind of what that's about, and looking at the difference between facial expressions and hand gestures. So that's interesting. That would probably work, and they have a PDF full text. So that would be something that you could submit to me. And we look at these, and basically we just look for things that are interesting to you. So building nonverbal skills for trustworthiness and leadership, that could be interesting. So let's say I want to look at this one. I could then click on the PDF full text. And it's actually in a nursing journal, which is fine. As long as there's that communication or messaging aspect to it. Now, one thing I do as I look at this, I'm a little concerned that this might not have good research in it. So as I glance at it, this is not a good research article. This is more a very, very surface level summary of what is found in other articles. And I would not approve this one because it's just really too surface. This is not something that includes good research. So that's not going to work. It's not the problem of it being in a nursing article, it's the problem that it's just not in depth. So let's look at something else. And sometimes you have to go through lots of pages before you find something you really like. Okay, here's one that's interesting to me. Effects of social anxiety on nonverbal accuracy and response time, facial expressions. So this is looking to see if there's a correlation between social anxiety and how accurate or inaccurate someone with social anxiety is at identifying facial expressions. So let's take a look at this one. And this is from the Journal of Nonverbal Behavior, great journal. And so already I can just look at this abstract, and if I'm going to decide whether or not to use an article, I'm essentially going to first of all look at the abstract to see what it's about. And if they start using things like hypothesis, and if we start looking at methods, that tells me that we're looking at a research study which is perfect for this particular assignment, something that has original research in it. So again, this sounds interesting. So they're predicting that high social anxiety would be associated with more errors and a longer response time when trying to identify facial expressions. And they did find a correlation, but it varied depending on the level of anxiety. So after I look at that beginning, I'm also just going to jump to the end before I decide whether or not I would want to use it if I were a student. And I go past the results even. The results is the boringest section, frankly. And we go down to where there is going to be a section called, and this is a long article, discussion. And I'm going to glance at the discussion to see if I am interested in this. So I would look at this and say, okay, did they find something interesting in here that would make me want to read the entire article? Oh, and so they say, contrary to traditional expectations, we found no significant relationship between social anxiety and errors in identifying facial expressions of emotion. Okay, so actually it's different than what they thought in the abstract, or maybe it's because I'm talking and reading at the same time, I didn't process it well. So I would find this interesting. I'd go, okay, I would actually want to read this whole thing to find out more about it and see what their study was like, what they learned. And so if you decide to use this article, if I were you would then go up here where it says download PDF. You would download this PDF and then you would go back to Moodle. And let's see if I can pull up Moodle here. You would go to Moodle, you would click on Dropbox and for article approval, and then you would upload that full-length article into Dropbox, and you would be doing that for 2 different articles. All right, so that is what you're going to be doing for finding the actual articles. Now, there's another way that you can do this other than just using the library database. And this is perhaps what I tend to do more than using the library database. So I go to Google Scholar, which is scholar.google.com. And here I can put nonverbal communication, facial expressions, and I can also be getting scholarly journal articles. Now, they're not all scholarly journal articles, but many of them are, and probably the majority. But every now and then you get something that creeps into here that might be from a magazine or something like that. And we want to avoid those overall. Now, I tend to make it more recent there. So I selected since 2016. And what you will see in here is if you can have access to a free version of the full-length article, in this right margin, there'll be a link where you can download it. So this one, there is an article you can download. Now the problem is this one says facial expression recognition, a review. So this has no new research in it. All they're going to do is be summarizing what other people researched. So this is not one that I would approve. I would say find a different article because you want one with original research. Maybe I find this interesting, the impact of the teacher's nonverbal communication on success in teaching. So I come over here, we can get access to it. I could click on it. And not all of these links work. Most of the time they do, but sometimes they don't work. And then you just have to go find a different article. So here, just got to glance at the abstract and see what this is about. Oh, and you know what? This actually wouldn't work either because this is also just a review article. They were not doing original research. They are also simply doing a review of other research articles. So I'm going to keep looking. And if you look at these, you can keep going and see what you're interested in. Oh, here's a large-scale analysis of sex differences in facial expression. So we're probably looking at expressions for males and female. Oh, this is also interesting. Different facial expressions that represent pain and pleasure across organizations. I'm always interested in that intercultural aspect and what's different in other cultures. And so I'm going to pick that and take a look and see if this is going to be a a research article, and it is. Um, they used different observers, and we see that they have machine learning, information theoretic analysis, and human perceptual discrimination tasks, and mental representations of pain and orgasm, well, okay, pleasure, are physically and perceptually distinct in each culture. Okay, so there's some interesting things there. I don't know. So I wasn't expecting it to go in the one direction of what the pleasure was going to be. I thought that might be more like joy or happiness. So if I'm not comfortable with that and I go, you know what, I don't know if I really want to read about that necessarily, then I could go back and look at another one. Let's look at personality traits, nonverbal communication patterns. Now that one was a PDF, so um, it downloaded it for me. And here we have, looks like we have a study. And we'll see that this is how they're doing personality traits. And they talk about some previous studies. Then they talk about what their hypotheses, what they think is going to happen. And then if again we go down to that discussion towards the end, and this is where they talk about what their study revealed. Okay, this is interesting. So I would take that and I would upload that to Moodle for that to be something for your professor, me, to approve or not approve. All right, so hopefully you get an idea about how to find some of these articles.